Well, I think what we need as humans is security. And so I think more than anything, as good leaders of organizations, you've got to create safety. And so when the team knows that they are safe to bring failures, to bring wins, to bring struggles to you, and they see that you're willing to solve those struggles for them, it creates a feedback loop where they continue to do it and they continue to do it and they continue to do it. And then they start to learn how you think.
Welcome back to another episode of My Dental Playbook. I'm your co-host, Gary Bird. Along with my friend, Dr. Blake Hamblin, we're going to be telling you how to run an effective one-on-one. This is the most important thing if you truly want your team to grow and love their job. So many dentists neglect this and they make excuses, and we're going to give you the exact roadmap. And at the end of the show, we're going to give you a checklist on how to run an effective one-on-one. Stop being scared of your team. Start taking control of your destiny. This is something you have to do. All right, we are live and we're going to have another great episode today. This is going to be a good one. It's going to bring a ton of tactical value to you. And just so you know, at the end of the show, we're going to give away a PDF that puts this all together for you so you can just print it out and you can do it yourself. Because I know it's scary to run one-on-ones when you first get started. You're like, what am I going to talk about? They're going to think I don't know what I'm doing. There's all these fears that come up. And to be honest with you, your team's probably feeling a little bit of that fear as well. Like, oh no, I'm going to get in trouble. So it's on both sides. So we're going to talk through that today. So when did you start running one-on-ones at your office, Dr. Blake?
Much too late. I should have done them much sooner. I would say we've consistently started doing them, honestly, probably within the past year and a half. We hit an inflection point where we went from a small office where I was able to manage a lot of this stuff and I was able to check in and have the time to do that. And then we got to the point to where I needed to schedule specific time, which I know we'll talk about, and then it got to the point to where I couldn't personally lead the one-on-ones and needed to hand that off. So
let's first start with all the reasons that people say, no, this is why I don't run one-on-one. So they say, I don't have time. They actually save you time, right? They save you a boatload of time. And the reason for that is I tell everybody, no. Unless it's an emergency, put it to our one-on-one. Like, I don't need to know about it in the middle of the week that, we need to order more paper. You know what I mean? Like, wait till our one-on-one. And then in our one-on-one, I'll help them how to make those decisions so they don't have to ask me anymore. So that's a big one. Not enough time. I believe they save a ton of time. The other one is, and you could speak to this one, I'm scared everybody's going to ask me for a raise.
Yeah. So what I found is like when you're constantly meeting together and setting expectations from both ends. So a lot of times we're really good as providers to tell other people what to do and instead of leading them that way, but they often don't know what success looks like. And so therefore they take another trip around the sun and they believe that they are all of a sudden $2 more valuable. And that's just not how business works. And so as you meet more frequently, you can check in and really measure what are those improvements? How have we made changes? Have we grown because of your growth? And if so, then absolutely, yeah. I think part of why we get pushback when people come and they want a raise is because we're not stoked about that. Like when people come and they want a raise from me, I'm like, that's awesome. I want you to have a raise too. Let's figure out a way to help you create more value.
Yes. How can I create more value? And we're going to talk about that in the meeting. And well, actually, what I think the first thing that a meeting should start with is a scoreboard. And I think a lot of dental offices really, really fail at this one. Meaning, how do I know if I'm winning or losing?
Yeah, man. I think like I've had a lot of clarity in that over the past year or so as we've grown from that smaller office to a larger office. And in a smaller office, you quite literally wear every hat, and most of your team also wears multiple hats. But as you grow, you need those specialized positions. And as we've grown into that, we've actually taken away a team-wide bonus, and now each and every employee is incentivized by doing their job better. And so, quite literally, like I've kind of removed the "Hey, I want to raise" discussion simply by saying, "Hey, if you want this, that's great. Go ahead and create it." You know what I mean? And we track very specific KPIs tied to each position. And as they grow, they also get more money.
So you're training them how to help you, which in turn helps them, rather than just like, hey, this person's coming to ask me for stuff. And what that does too is it ends up it removes the questions from their head of like, how do I do this? Because you didn't give them the structure before, like most owners, like I didn't either. And then it also removes the resentment from you of like, why is this person asking for me? Because it's so clear. So when I have one-on-ones, the person I'm meeting with, they already know if they're winning or losing, if they're on track or off track.
Right. And I think that's where a lot of doctors get nervous is they don't, number one, they don't like having that conversation. And it feels like a difficult conversation. And frankly, it is a difficult conversation until you've done it over and over and over again. And then you learn ways to very kindly say, like, hey, you're doing a great job here, but our expectations are not aligned. And I want to help you. Like you're an important part of this team and I want to help you win. And so is there any questions in regards to what the goals of your position is, or are there any roadblocks that are in your way that I can help remove to help you succeed?
Yep, 100%. And then the other thing that I've seen is that you have to schedule them. So they have to be scheduled. You cannot say, well, we'll just do it when we have time or when we need to. It has to be like a weekly or bi-weekly. And just to call it out, you don't have to do all your one-on-ones. You can do one-on-one. And I think this is how you're structured now. You do one-on-one, but you're setting the tone or the example for that person, teaching them how to run them, and then they're pushing it to the rest of their team. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, so I have a standing meeting with my operations team every Wednesday morning at 7 a.m. And we actually talked about that this morning as I looked a few weeks ahead and didn't see any blockouts for one-on-ones. And I just reminded them how important it was and what it means to our organization to have them, and set expectations as far as what they could expect from a scheduling standpoint. As we've grown, it used to be we're going to meet every week, but frankly, we can't do that anymore. So I was like, okay, let's do every other week. Let's meet with each individual person. So now you can, if we've got it, let's say an easy math problem, you've got 14 employees. We're going to meet with 7 this week, 7 next week, and meet again with the 7. And then at the end of the month, we're going to do departmental meetings. So one of our one-on-one meetings is actually we get together in a group and we have a group think, and then we even have a whole team meeting once a month. So it seems like a lot of time. It seems like you're wasting time at first because you're like, man, how am I going to block an hour or even 2 off of my schedule? But when you do it, you will find that there are so many things going on in your practice that you were unaware of that are causing drag and that you can fix very easily.
Yeah, you notice you get a lot less fires, is what ends up happening. And what I literally what I have is I just have a Google Doc. So when I'm like, oh, I need so and so to do this, or I need them to improve this, or I need to look at the system, rather than running to them when I had free time, telling it to them, they're probably going to forget. Now I can sit in a meeting and have that conversation with them in an organized way. And then they're doing the same thing. They have their list of things that they need to go over with me. And what I found is the more consistent I do them, the shorter they become. Like I used to need a lot more time with new, like when someone's new or I'm new to what they're doing and trying to learn what they're doing, like that takes a lot more energy. But over time, it's just like they shrink and shrink and shrink until you get them down to a nice little short meeting once every 2 weeks. And that seems to really work well for me. And I've seen it work for other people. It sounds like you did the same thing. What about personal goals tying in? If I feel like it's really hard to know what's going on with people unless you're meeting with them every week. How do you look at that?
In fact, at the beginning of this year, I had my team fill out something called the 4 futures, and it's just focusing on like mind, muscle, money, and what's the other end? Basically relationships. And so like I want to know like what are your wellness goals? Like are you hoping to gain 5 pounds this year? Are you hoping to lose 5 pounds this year? Like what are your goals? How can we help support that? Uh, this is like the money one is huge. It's like, well, I'm hoping to get a raise. Well, awesome. Again, like just like I handle all the treatment planning stuff, which I think in future episodes we can talk about verbiage and how I walk through some of that stuff. But I love handling the objection before it becomes an objection. It's such a hack. And so when I can say like, what are your money goals? And they're like, well, I want to make 20 grand more. And it's like, then that's probably not going to be here. Or maybe it is.
But you're going to have to change positions.
Right. We're going to have to upgrade you into other positions.
Or have to become a doctor. You need to go back to college.
Right. I think it like helps align goals. And then as you're meeting in those one-on-ones, you can remind them. So, and it goes the other way. So when they're not meeting up to those standards, hey, Jenny, you told me that you want to make X amount of dollars this year, and I'm here to help support you do that. But we're missing the mark here. And so again, how can I help you do that? All that stuff.
I find this is the most useful with young people. Like the younger they are, the better, right? So like if I go to somebody who's a little more seasoned, older, like my age, and they kind of know what they want and why they want it, and they're able to articulate it very clearly, like up front without even anybody asking. And I find, not always, but usually, they're better at it. With young people, they're like, well, I want more money. And it's like, well, why do you, what's going on? What do you need? And it's like, and they kind of stumps them like, well, what's your goals in your life? And I've worked with young people before, especially in marketing, right? Because people get in really young and they want to be in marketing. And it's like, well, what's your goals? And so it's almost like you have to, the younger they are, the more you have to teach them how to think and then also communicate their desires and their wants. So an example is like, I want to raise, well, why? And it's like, when you get to the bottom of it, it's like, well, I want to get married and I want to buy a house and I want to have a family someday. Well, that's amazing. I want to facilitate that, like you said, but you got to almost help them articulate it and kind of work down that road.
Yeah, I've got a mentor, and he'll often ask me whenever I tell him some lofty goal that I have, he'll ask me, well, why not less? Which seems like an obvious question, but then he'll ask me, well, why not more? And so it's getting to the bottom of, well, I've never been on a vacation to Colorado, and I want to take my family to Colorado. And to do that, I need to make $2,000 more this year. Awesome. How do we build this out? You know what I mean?
Yep. And then teaching them how to tie it back into the office and the numbers of the office, right? Like if the business is struggling, we're at the point now when my team knows when we're not having a good month, they know not to come and ask for stuff. You know what I mean? And then when we're having an amazing month or an amazing quarter, they're like, okay, now's the time to ask. Now would be a better time because they actually see all the numbers. We have them thinking like business owners of their book of business so it's really cool because now you don't have to have awkward conversations when it's not going to be able to be, you're not going to be able to facilitate it. So I love that. And then we had on here, you had a question that you ask in every meeting, and you teach your team to do this with everybody. How can we make your job more efficient and easier? Why do you ask that? And then what comes out of that?
I think like what most people, what we need as humans is security. And so like, that's why you get married. That's why maybe you have kids. That's why maybe you have a faith. That's why we do a lot of things in life. And so I think more than anything, as good leaders of organizations, you've got to create safety. And so when the team knows that they are safe to bring failures, to bring wins, to bring struggles to you, then you can, and they see that you're willing to solve those struggles for them, then it creates a feedback loop where they continue to do it and they continue to do it and they continue to do it. And then they start to learn how you think. So they maybe first time they bring you the deal of like, hey, we're running out of hygiene cassettes. And I'm like, that's the easiest, like money problems are the easiest problems. Cool. Let's just buy more iPads, or let's just buy more cassettes. Like the hard problems are like, hey, Jenny's hasn't been helping in sterilization, and it's really causing a stressor on the team. Yeah.
Those emotional problems are a lot harder. It's totally true. And, the money problems are easy, but they're only easy for you because no one in your company is going to want to spend your money without authorization. So if you haven't built a framework for them to be able to ask for it, and you don't have one-on-ones, this is where you get people who are frustrated, and then they start putting you in a box. So they start saying, hey, you're cheap, you don't do this, you don't do that. And in reality, you're just like, dude, I didn't even know we didn't have any more of the cassettes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, which I do think there's a balance. I think there are, and I've been in the camp of like maybe I am being too cheap. And so sometimes it's a mirror that you have to look into and be like, okay, how can I actually support these people if I'm asking that question? And you have to have some vulnerability to be able to take criticism even from your own team. And I think it just breeds a culture in the office of, like, we talk a lot about in our office, of just being a laboratory. And I tell them all the time, I say, hey, I think I have some really awesome ideas, but I definitely don't have all the ideas. And I want to know, like, if you've been at other offices prior to being here, what did y'all do there that worked? Like, let's you guys are smart people too. So let's figure out all this stuff together. And we may try it and it may fail and it may be terrible. And that's okay. Because all we got to do is roll it right back. I mean, it's just like we've talked about with rolling out the $49 cleaning instead of going in network with insurance. It's like, if you don't like it, you just stop doing it. It's easy. Like, it's really simple. There's no risk. So just let the team come to you and share what they're winning with, share what they're losing, and I think you'll be in good shape.
Okay, here's a big one. And I feel like this is really extra. It's big for all business owners, but it's extra big for dentists, because the way that dentistry is set up is you're always doing dental work. And so you don't have a lot of time to communicate. And so that means you're always blunt and like super to the point, right? Because you don't have time. And I'm that way too. Because when I get busy, I'm just like, nope, what's the quickest way I can say this? And that's not always the best way to say it. But it's emotional security. So when you're in these one-on-ones, allowing people room to be able to tell you that they're failing and for you to be able to work through that. And if you don't do that and you don't create that environment, then everybody hides their failures from you. You kind of get one of the two worlds. You either get people hiding all their failures from you and you have to dig them out and you're mad, or they come and bring them to you and then you help work through it so it doesn't happen again in the future. I think that's a big deal.
Another thing I like to do is I like to ask about, if they're married or they have kids. I'll say, how's Joe doing? I know he works at blah, blah, blah. How's work going? How the kids? I know y'all went on that vacation a month ago. How was that? Tell me more about that. So like when they come into the office and they know it's not just all about like, how much can we produce and what can we create in the day? Like, when you show interest in their life, they are more likely to want to help you grow and reach your goals as well. So it's a two-way street. And I think we fail a lot in that aspect of thinking like these are employees. And like, I don't even call them employees. Like, I call them team members. And so when people, even like when potential new hires are coming in and they'll say that, and I'll just be like, well, we're looking for really great team members.
And there's practical ways to do this too that are really cheap. So like some things that I do every day at the end of my day, I just have a time where who do I want to thank? And every day I usually send a thank you card to somebody. Like, it might be somebody I have on a podcast. It might be somebody on my team that did something well. And I just tell them, hey, thank you so much for doing that. It takes me 10 minutes. You know what I mean? And thank you so much for doing that. It meant a lot to me. And that goes like handwritten letters go a long, long way because no one sends them anymore, right? My mom, the only time I get a handwritten letter is like from my mom. You know what I mean?
Right. What's the Sarah Blakely's husband, Jesse Itzler, I think is his last name. But he has something, I'll have to find it and send it to you. But he has something where he says, if every day you sent something quick, and it could be one sentence to 3 people in your life and just said, hey, Gary, like, you mean a lot to me. I hope you have a great day. If you did that over your lifetime, you would send some ungodly number of like emails, texts, whatever, and make people feel so special. And I love that. That's amazing.
Yep, I totally agree. And then the other thing that we do, if someone calls out sick, we send a meal, an Uber Eats to their house, like automatically. And if they have kids, especially if they're like a mom and they have kids and, I know that they're responsible for making dinner usually, I'll send it for them and their family, right? Just like, hey, it's totally a cheat code. It costs like $50 to $100. And sometimes people, it's funny because I've had people ask, like, what if they're not really sick? I'm like, well, now they know I'm paying attention, and now they're going to sit there and eat food and be like, I'm healthy. Gary sent me. It's like the most guilty feeling in your entire life. You know what I mean?
And what will happen is if you start doing that and they start being sick every week, well, all of a sudden it becomes a bigger problem to you, and you're willing to solve it.
Yeah, and they know I'm paying attention, right? Like, I don't, in my company there, I know when people are miss a bunch of days, and we're remote. So I mean, when you're in person, it's obviously much more clear. But yeah, like people, it actually has it's like you're not celebrating them being sick. You're showing them that you care that they're sick, and they'll be sick less often because of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and to get back to kind of what we were talking about with the one-on-ones, I think more than anything, one-on-ones are like the biggest cheat code for culture setting, because in those one-on-ones, it will naturally come out visions that you have in your head for where you want to go, and those words will just like fall out on the floor in front of your team, and they will pick up on it, and they will start to embody it, because they look up to you. You are the doctor, you hung the moon, and at the end of the day, you sign their paycheck. And so there's a little bit of that like dad fear or mom fear, if you're a woman, that is healthy, but at the same time, like they want to do a good job. Like the two rules of do a good job and any understanding is an error of misunderstanding. And so like everybody wants to do a great job. And so we just have to like tease that out of them sometimes.
100%. Okay, last one that I want to add in there. At least once a year, you should, in my opinion, go through and ask them, these are our core values. Which of these core values do you feel that you're living up to, and which of them do you not? And usually you should have like 4 to 7 core values. And it's okay if someone, like I have a team member, like one of ours is like, always exceed your own expectations. Like try to exceed your own expectations, not like, don't let me be the person setting the bar for you, set your own bar. And I have a team member that like can never meet her own expectations because she's a really, really high performer. And like, and I'm always like, well, you're one of the top performers. And she's like, well, I'm not living up to that core value because I wanted to do so much more. I'm not going to be like, okay, you're not on the team because of that. Right. But so it's okay to have 1 or 2 of them, but they're not. But if someone's like consistently not meeting up to the core values, it means there's a misfit there.
Yeah, we've got some assessment forms that we can post on the website, but it's basically some general questions. Like I've got the personal skills assessment for the front office, and it's one of the questions is I arrive on time and complete opening duties with excellence. And there's 1 through 5, and there's 20 different questions, and they fill it out and we fill it out, and it's a really easy way to walk through. If they're a 5 and you're a 5, it's like cool. Brush your hands off. There's nothing to talk about here. But when they're a 1 and you put a 5, so like in your example, she does awesome and she thinks she's not. Those are things like culturally you can sit there and say, hey, you're doing a fantastic job. Let's talk about like why you're so hard on yourself, right? And then the other way around of like they think they're amazing and you're like, you're not in this area, then that can point you in the direction of how you can lead that person in the meeting too.
So good. This is a great episode. I learned a lot, and I believe our audience will too. If you want to, go to our website, mydentalplaybook.com, and check out this episode, and you will be able to download all this great information. Dr. Blake's going to have the resources that he had. Plus, we just organized it in a way that you can just walk through it and do your one-on-ones. If you're not doing one-on-ones, go do them. Just start. I promise you it's so worth it. I promise you it's not as scary as you think. Good episode.
Yeah, I love it. Thanks for having me.